let's say you found a skeleton. How would you tell if it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Hey everybody, welcome to Dapper Reacts number 183, I think. We are starting off with some Dappers of Professional drinks, 2 of them, because yeah, I did screw up by not switching to the countdown, and then also by switching to the scene without the intro playing, so like, my bad. So, it happens. It's not that big of a deal. For $5, Tree Clam Tad says, a bandit again. AIG is a bag of Joanne no middle name ramblings. Accurate. We'll take a drink for that. I am drinking some store brand cola with a 50-cent nip bottle of store brand vodka added to it. So I'm doing all sorts of fancy stuff today. This entire glass is like, I don't know, like 80 cents or something. I'm going real cheap. So, Vishanti, how you doing?
It's been a week.
Sure has.
I discovered that apparently when people wanted to buy me some things off of my wish list, that it went to my old address
Oof.
in Orange County. It did not come here, and I had to drive all the way down to Orange County to get my stuff. So
even just driving, that's like an hour and a half or something, isn't it?
It depends. I mean, obviously
Okay.
it's greater Los Angeles, so traffic can make it take anywhere from 45 minutes to 90 minutes.
Yeah,
but
every part of LA is either 10 minutes or an hour away from the rest of LA. There's no in between.
Yeah, there's no in between. Yeah. So, if you want to buy something off my wish list and it gives you the option of an address, make sure it does not say Garden Grove.
Okay.
Or just message me and I'll confirm my address. So.
Okay. Speaking of gifts, I do have a couple people to thank. First, I want to thank Templar Warden for gifting me Dino Blade on Steam, and then Tad for gifting me Wolfenstein: The New Order on Steam. So this way, I can fulfill my fantasies of being a dinosaur wielding a gigantic anime-style sword, which means, completely overbalanced and impossible, but looks cool anyway. And also, my fantasies of being able to do things that I would really like to be able to do in real life, but can't, as BJ Blazkowicz. So. Who may or may not be an ancestor to Doom Guy. We're not sure. But there's hints that maybe. All right, Sapphire Plushie Sorcerer's Light for $5 says, today is my 1-year anniversary of starting E. Thanks for building such a wonderful and welcoming community of people with heart emojis, a trans flag, horns, and kaiju puppy. Oh, and the beating heart emoji. I missed that one. Sorry about that. Thank you very much. And also, that is awesome. And we'll take a drink for Carmen. Congratulations. And look, I really do want this to be as welcoming a community as possible. So I'm glad that it's working because it's one of my goals. So that means I'm accomplishing a goal. Let's see. Tree Clam Tat for $2 says, Dapper is in his college sophomore era. Am I? Maybe. Oh, in terms of the drink? Yeah, that's true. In terms of the drinks, yeah. See, the thing is, by the time I was a college sophomore, I had already been in the Navy for like 6 years. So like, I didn't get the real college sophomore experience. I got the non-traditional student sophomore challenge. And now I am looking at I am not even sure what script this is from Dutch Tunicate Official. At first, I thought maybe it was like Amharic, but then as I'm looking at it, nope, doesn't seem like it. So I don't actually know what that is. But there's some kind of pronunciation. It says AIG Puksovuk Kungasirnut. Oh, is that Inuktitut? Is that the language? It's one of the native languages from like the Arctic, I believe. Yeah. There's a lot of languages out there, everybody, and I don't know all of them. In fact, I only know a very tiny fraction of them. So sometimes you got to help me out. Let's see. Metakiki Platypus Librarian for $5 says Inictitut syllabics. I was right. I got it. I got the language right. You know, I'm taking a drink for Dapper guesses correct obscure language. I'm not a linguist, though. That's... Shut up. So Metakiki Platypus Librarian for $5 says, so Dapper's a cheap drunk, we're learning. And sorry, Vishanti, for those deliveries, probably mine. Also, AIG is a satchel of sullied summer squash. Today, I am a cheap drunk. Because basically, I try not to have a very high liquor budget. But also, I did something I very rarely do today, which is I bought alcohol without the intent to use it on stream and with the intent to just have some for myself. Right? Just a little bit. And that was the stuff that I spent a lot on. And since I didn't want to up my alcohol budget, I opted for the cheapest possible alcohol I could for today, which is to say I got a few 50-cent nip bottles. They were on sale. And then I got a 2-liter of store brand cola. Let's see. Roshina for $1.99 says goals are overrated. Embrace nihilism. Embrace void. I mean, you know, you make a compelling argument, especially since so many of the things that I would like to be able to do are just never going to be able to happen. But that's why I have video games like Wolfenstein. Fear Xeno Christmonger, nice, who's been a member for 45 months and is at the Tetrapod level, says Yavla AIG at fun medem o deras folk. I'm pretty sure I butchered that, and I think it's like Swedish? Is it Swedish? Is that what that looks like to you? Maybe Swedish. But I'm gonna drink for it.
I don't know.
Is this show just becoming Make Dapper Guess Language?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, fair. And I do better than you would expect on average for some rando on the streets. So, like... Naramda puts for $2 says, once and future anti-pope of linguistics. There we go. 42CRMO4, not a robot, X5, who's been a member for 6 months, says, visit your local steelworks with a Godzilla and a Mothra. And I'm not sure I even have a local steelworks. I have local copper mines. And some of them actually pay for their operations with the byproduct of gold that they also produce. There was actually one mine that I was pretty close to not that long ago, and that's how it operates, is all of its operating costs are covered by the gold it digs up, and its actual profit is covered with the copper that it sells.
Okay.
So, yeah. Let's see. Tree Clam Tat for $5 says, I also try not to have a high liquor budget. Also, I fail at many things. That's fair. All right, so as you know, there is a super chat goal. If we get to 30 super chats of any color, then the host will be unleashed, and I will think up some kind of other 20 super chat goal or something like that if we get there. All right, so when last we left off, Dan Biddle was telling us how there were giant axe heads buried in the Hopewell Mounds. Now, the Hopewell are a indigenous culture from like the Midwest. It's Ohio, right?
Yes.
Okay. And this was a mound building culture, and mound building cultures were sort of like almost pervasive across a lot of North America, until basically a little bit before European contact is when it's that whole like culture seems to start to collapse, and we're not sure why. But we have a lot of archaeological finds from them. We have a lot of the remains of their various cities, not as many as we would like, because a lot of people, primarily European colonists, like flattened a lot of the mounds and dug them up so that they could make flat farmland. But we do still have pretty extensive archaeological record, and like they weren't giants. And the big way that we know is that we have skeletons, right? Like we found their remains buried in the mounds, and they weren't giants. Some of them were tall, but that's just like how human populations work. If you take any large population of humans, some of them will be tall. And some of them will be short. Like Chesh. Chesh is short. In fact, I think she might be the shortest adult human I know. Not have ever known, but that I currently know. I guess she's an adult goblin, though, so I guess that doesn't count. It's complicated. Dutch Tunicate Officials for $5 says, my gobies have arrived. 5 out of 6 are in good health. Unfortunately, 1 arrived dead, but the rest have settled into their tank pretty well with a Godzilla. Well, I'm glad that they have arrived. I'm sorry to hear about the one dead one. That is unfortunate. Victoria Macarios for €2 says, AIG ist eine Pimmeltute, which I'm pretty sure is German that I just butchered, so we'll take a drink. Thank you very much. So that is where we were, and now Dan just told us about these copper celts, which he's calling axe heads. So we're going to hear what he has to say about them, and then we're going to talk about them. And so he's just alerted us that they're very, very big and heavy, and that they would be hard to use as axe heads. Which he's right about. These would be hard to use as axe heads, but we'll talk about that more after he goes through it.
Well, the easy out for secularists is, oh, well, they were just instrumental, or they were just used for ceremonial purposes.
Okay, so I will say that there is something to be said for the idea that sometimes when we don't know what an object was for, we'll just say ceremonial uses. Or sometimes when we have a good idea what it is for, but we don't like what that answer is, sometimes then we'll say ceremonial uses also. I'll just say that the archaeological record is replete with what some might today call marital aids that have been designated as ceremonial use objects. So, like, you know. But also, so these particular things are not axe heads. We know that for a few reasons. One, they're not sharp. So at least the ones in the middle and on the left. On the right, I can't see well enough what's going on there. Those might be sharp, but that does not look like they're the same objects as the one in the middle and the one in the right. Sorry, in the left. So what these are is they're called celts, C-E-L-T-S, and they're basically hunks of copper. And they're hunks of copper that don't show any sign of ever been mounted on a handle or a haft, so they're not axe heads. They're not sharp, so they're not axe heads, and they don't have any wear marks from being used as tools. So again, not axe heads. So what are they? Well, we don't know for sure, but since they seem to be occasionally buried with people, and people that had fairly fancy burials, a prominent idea is that they're just basically the same thing as currently, like, we use gold bars for, right? Like, if you know someone who owns some gold bars, that's basically just a place where that person has put a bunch of his wealth so that it's conveniently in a location, and it's in a, format that isn't going to decay away or anything, and that can then possibly later be used by exchanging it for other things that are easier to, use economically. But it's a long-term store of wealth. So basically, these were just large sums of money. Now, it's a little bit more complicated than that, because the Hopewell culture probably didn't have money in this exact same sense that we think of it, which is to say, the most liquid fungible item in an economy that's used as both a measure of price and a store of wealth and a medium of exchange. I guess that's 3 things, whatever. That's like the formal economics definition of money. And there probably was no one thing that functioned as money in this Hopewell culture. At least we don't have any evidence that there was. But that doesn't mean that you couldn't have wealth stores that were made up of big chunks of something. And that seems like what these were. Just big chunks of copper that you put someplace safe. And when you needed to, you could break out the copper, melt it down, and sell it, stuff like that. So it's, yeah, there's no reason to think these were giants. And also, even if they were ceremonial axe heads, that's still more plausible than there were giants whose skeletons we've never found. Like, sometimes humans make big things, and they don't need to be giants to do it. I've been to Dubai. I know sometimes humans make big things. And there weren't any giants in Dubai. There were just a lot of slaves, as it turns out.
I don't know, maybe so. But in some cases, they would find these copper axes,
which they're not,
in a grave, and they would be more antiqued than the ones that were on top of the person found built. So maybe they were more historical.
I love the idea. Okay, so we found a grave with a normal-sized human, and it's got a big old hunk of copper, and then above that buried human, we find another buried human with another big old hunk of copper, but it's newer. That's just superposition in archaeology. Right? Like, the top layers are the youngest layers in archaeology, and as you dig down, you get to older and older layers, because no one's going to lift up the entire earthen mound into the air to insert a new burial underneath with new earth and then plop the rest of the mound down, because that's not how, like, anything works. Like, Am I missing something, Vishanti? Is this not just him ignoring the principle of superposition in archaeology?
I don't know what he's doing right now, to be honest with you.
Okay. Here, Xenocrissmonger says, don't you know that giant bones are made of paper? Of course their spearheads survive when their bones are missing in action. I didn't know that, actually. No, that's news to me. It would be really weird if giant bones were made out of, like, sheets of cellulose. True Planet Chat for $2 says, the copper was bad and he was mean to my slave. My favorite thing about that is that those complaints were actually found in Ian Nasir's house. Like, he held on to his customer complaints like trophies. Guy was clearly shady and was
Got him.
absolutely okay with it.
Here's some other spearheads that were super, super long and found. They're finding these things in America in the Hopewell Mounds. Who's working with a 38
You haven't shown us a spearhead.
pound axe head?
A 38-pound axe head. No one. No one is, because they're not axe heads, Dan. Nothing about them says they're axe heads. They don't have any mounting points for a haft. They don't have wear marks from having been used as an axe. They're not weighted like an axe head. They're not sharp. They're just hunks of copper. And so I don't think they were ceremonial. I think they were probably just, like I said, the ancient Hopewell version of a gold bar. Like, some of you probably have like an uncle or a grandfather or someone who listened to like Alex Jones back when he still had InfoWars and bought some of that gold that he and like L.A. Marzulli and like, I don't know, what's that Mormon guy who got fired from Fox?
Oh, Glenn Beck?
Glenn Beck, yeah, he was hawking gold too.
Yeah.
Like, they
Yeah.
listen to those guys and they buy that gold and then they put it in a safe somewhere. It's just that. It's probably just that. Which doesn't require giants to explain. Like, have you ever seen or have you ever felt how heavy a gold bar is?
No.
They're super heavy. Like, gold is almost the same density as lead. And you felt how heavy lead objects can be. Think about one that's just a brick of lead. And that's about how heavy a brick of gold is going to be. It's a big thing. Metageeky Platypus Librarian for $2 says, what if not a spearhead, but kidney stone? Oh, yeah, even bigger giants. How do we know they're not
Ooh.
they're not just the kidney stones of hyper giants? Metageeky, you are onto something right here. I think that actually what is really happening is that the Nephilim giants with the axe heads are actually a psyop that the Smithsonian has engaged in to cover up the hyper giants for whom these are just kidney stones. That's the real truth.
Okay.
It's like when someone says they don't believe in the moon landing, and so you just respond with, sorry, you believe in the moon?
Yeah, you believe in the moon?
Yeah, come on. We all know the moon is just a hologram that has been put there by the lizard people. Allegedly Fred for $10 redo says, God took the giant bones to heaven. They're in a museum there, and AIG is, unfortunately. Yeah, we'll take a drink. And you know what? That is another option, is, yeah, God took the giant bones to heaven. It's one of those things like, you know, the Assumption of Mary in Catholic theology, where Mary doesn't die, she just goes to heaven. Which is weird because actually, in Eastern Christianity, the belief is that she died, but then her body disappeared. And it's like that's a weird little division there. But yeah, that's why Eastern churches that are named after the same festival are named Dormition as opposed to Assumption. So that even happens, I think, with Eastern Catholic churches. You'll get Dormition, like Dormition of the Virgin Mary, Eastern Catholic whatever church, as opposed to Assumption. Anyway, Roshina for $1.99 says, I burnt my mouth on 2 hot jalapeno poppers with a crying face. Well, that is horrible because, for one thing, jalapeno poppers are amazing. I love them. But I hate when they turn against you by having, especially when they have, like, you know, that little pocket of, like, superheated, like, juice right in the middle, and you bite in and it just floods into your mouth and everything hurts. Yeah, I hate that. Which sucks because overall, jalapeno poppers are an amazing food, right? Like, hey, take a jalapeno, stuff it with cream cheese. I'm already on board. Then bread it, okay, and deep fry it. Yeah, no, I want everything in there. That's all good. Isabella Tracer for $1.99 says, you believe in lizards? I know, right? What a fool I am. Actually, I got jump scared by a lizard 2 days ago. I was going out to grab the recycling bin because it had been collected. And as I'm going to open the gate that leads from like the backyard into the front, there was just a
Mhm.
collared lizard sitting on the gate staring at me, and I didn't notice it until I was about to like slap it or something. I was like, "Holy crap! There's a collared lizard!" And like,
Oh.
I jumped back, and like, then I was like, "What do I do now?" Do I wait for it to run away? Because like, I don't want to hurt it or scare it. And then it ran away, and that resolved that conflict. Thanks, collared lizard. To be fair, the lizard wasn't like stalking me. It wasn't trying to surprise me. It was just having a relaxing day in the shade. So you know. Many Geeky Platypus Librarian for $5. Lizards created the moon to control the werewolves to fight the hypergiants who keep eating kale and getting stones and making all those pyramids. Oh, see, you guys are the real truthers.
Yes.
Actually, now whenever I hear or see the word truther, all I can think of is Mikey Smith complaining about how all the other truthers are fake truthers because they don't side with him on everything. It's just like,
Of course.
oh, Mikey. Mikey is a man with zero self-awareness. Just absolutely none. Not even a shred. And it's like, how come no one's doing what I'm doing? You call yourself truthers? It's like, yeah, because they don't think that what you're doing makes sense. And they're right. They're not right about much, but they're right about that.
Or a 27-pound axe head. So here's some extra biblical histories about giants. We can look at the book of Sirach.
Well, extra biblical depending on whose Bible you're talking about here. But also, is that AI columns of text? Because that doesn't look like
Oh
actual
my
writing.
god.
I think
The
that
one on the left is almost Ethiopic.
yeah, I see some shapes that make me think that it's Ethiopic that I recognize. And the one in the
But
Jubilees
also,
actually does look like it's probably in Ge'ez, but like
yeah, but then some of this almost looks like Syriac, so
all right. Well, it wouldn't be his first time showing us some Gen AI.
I don't
'Cause,
know.
you know, it turns out that
Ridiculous.
actually first Enoch was written by an LLM that time traveled into the past after it was jailbroken.
Okay.
Also, isn't the
Yeah.
Book of Giants part of First Enoch, or am I wrong about that? I feel like I might be wrong about that.
I don't recall offhand, but that sounds right.
And Jubilees and the book of Giants and the book of Enoch. I already mentioned we can't affirm the historical and true authorship of Lovelace.
Okay, it cleared up a little bit, and on the left, that actually does look like actual Ethiopic Abugida characters. So, all right, I don't think that any of
Okay.
them are AI generated.
A lot of these books, because they're supposed to be hundreds and hundreds of years old. Do we really have the right copy? What scholarship's been done? And they're not inspired. The book of Enoch's referred to several times throughout Scripture.
In fact, it's referred to as giving inspired prophecy in Scripture several times. So, I mean, you say it's not inspired, but like the author of Jude seems to disagree with you. At the very least. Tree Clam Tat for $5 says, I hate to disagree with my colleague Metageeky, but the moon was created by intergalactic space humans, as shown in the documentary Moonfall. I forgot about Moonfall. I didn't see it, because the whole thing seemed absurd to a degree where I don't think I could suspend my disbelief. But I have heard that it is an amusing watch if you just don't think about it too much and are just there for lots of goofy action scenes, which sometimes I am. So maybe I will check it out. But like, I don't know. There's sometimes where even in a fantastical universe, my immersion just breaks. And I think one of the prominent times was like Star Wars, right? Star Wars has like space wizards and faster than light travel and laser swords and sentient robots and all sorts of nonsense like that, right? But fundamentally, at like human scales, Newtonian physics works in Star Wars, right? Someone gets punched, they feel the impact, they go back. Someone jumps off of a height, and if they don't slow down before they hit the ground, they go smoosh. Like, your day-to-day physical existence in Star Wars seems to work the same way it does in the real world, right? So, when Rose smashes her speeder into Finn's ship at super high speed, and they both survive, it broke my sense of immersion completely, which was already kind of weak in that movie. And that was my final straw with Star Wars 8. Yep. That was when I lost it. Don't know why I'm bringing that up. Maybe it's to avoid extra Dan. Because, you know, Dan is a
Yeah.
lot. IT Guru says Star Wars often breaks that as simply as people flying backwards from getting shot by a laser. So yeah, that's true, right? People do get shot by what shouldn't cause them to fall back, but that also is just the language of cinema overall, and I sort of have gotten used to that. But like normally people just don't have giant high speed collisions and then get up and walk away in most movies. I don't know. It broke it for me.
But we would not regard it as inspired. But these books all talk about giants. And to some of us would say, well, maybe it colors in some things that the Bible leaves as scaffolding. It gives us just enough to know about giants, but maybe some of these extra books can fill in. That's certainly your choice to do that or not. But again, I think all we need is scripture.
So this brings up an interesting thing, right? What is Dan's idea of what constitutes scripture? Because like the books of the Bible were not selected because they corresponded to some rigorous list of criteria and the other books don't, right? There's no rigorous list of criteria that says that Genesis is in and Enoch is out. What actually happened was these were the books that religious communities used liturgically. That's basically it, right? In fact, to a large extent, you can say that the books that a religious group uses liturgically and its canon of scripture are essentially the same thing, right? There are some exceptions, like Taoist scripture is not really liturgically defined, but it's also an extensive canon that covers more than anyone is ever going to read in their entire lifetime because it's so many orders of magnitude bigger than the Bible. But like overall, yeah, like how do we know what's in like the Quran? Well, if you ask a theologically conservative Muslim, they'll say, well, these are the dictations that Muhammad gave and were as part of the Quran. But the actual real answer in terms of history is like, well, these are the ones that were used and recited in liturgical settings in Islam. And so they were preserved. And then they took on this ordering. And one of the ways that we can tell that that's probably what's going on in terms of that is also that the ordering isn't in any way chronological or thematic. It's basically just by length, with the biggest ones up front and the shortest ones in the back of the Quran. But it's the same thing basically with the Bible, right? Why is Enoch not in most Christians' Bibles? Because they stopped using it liturgically. That's it. Goopdo 3 for $2 says, the author of Jude, Paul McCartney? Yes, Paul McCartney, the author of Jude. That is exactly who I meant.
But it is a factual thing to say that these other ancient books of antiquities do talk about the giants topic, as do all of these early church fathers. They all knew about the topic.
Okay, but Dan, these are all dependent on the Genesis bit, right? These are all people riffing off Genesis, including Enoch in the Book of the Giants, right? So it's like taking, like, I don't know, like Twilight fan fiction and using the fact that there's fan fiction about Twilight to argue that vampires are real. It doesn't work that way. Everyone that we're talking about here is just making fanfic or commentary on Genesis. That's not independent attestation of giants. Why is this not obvious? It's obvious to everyone here, I assume, because people here aren't liars or idiots. Tree Clam Tat for $5 says, Dapper made us sit through 7 hours of Canadian bullshit. Now this with a Carmen. I didn't make you do anything. I did, however, put out a video that is approximately 7 hours of just me going through various quote-unquote papers that were signed to me as homework by a bunch of Canadian creationists. And it was kind of nightmarish.
You guys know these names are early church fathers. Many of them are regarded with a high degree of authority by...
Hey, wait, how come only one of them gets the saint? Why is Saint Ambrose special, but Saint Irenaeus or Saint Justin Martyr isn't? Or Saint Clement of Rome? Does Dan have his own special list of which saints count? I don't think he actually thought about it that much.
Different religious denominations and everything, and they all talked about
different denominations. My guy, all of these people are pre-schism, like Imperial Church or earlier. Which denominations do you think that they belonged to?
God.
I'm taking a drink for Dan doesn't even know the most basic things about church history, never mind the actual prehistory of North America. Yeah, Fear Xeno Chris Munger says exactly what I was thinking of. It's confirmed. 50 Shades of Grey is evidence of vampires. Exactly. Tree Clam Tad for $2 says, you threatened to eat me if I left. Yeah, I didn't say I didn't coerce you. I said I didn't make you. You could have tried your luck.
Giants, including Josephus, one of the great historians. And he says, for which reason they removed their camp to Hebron. And he's talking about the Israelites and their...
Wait, hold on. Is that Flavius Josephus? The
first century Jewish historian?
Yes, author of The Antiquity of the Jews.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because that is definitely the real title, The Antiquity of the Jews.
Yep.
Everyone knows Jews are just old. They're just really old people. They're born at 60.
You can get some water.
Okay.
History. And when they had taken it, they slew all the inhabitants. There were till they left the race of giants who had bodies so large and countenances so entirely different from other men that they were surprising to the sight and terrible to the hearing. The bones of these men are still shown to this very day. Very interesting. And we take Josephus for a lot of our other historical evidence.
But, well, we don't, though, right? Because, for one thing, we have to understand what Josephus is writing when he wrote Antiquities of the Jews, because that's the actual title, Antiquities, it's plural. So, what's happening is Josephus was a part of a rebellion in Judea that did not go well, and he was captured by Romans. And he was enslaved by those Romans. But because he was a well-educated person, rather than being put to work on like a latifundium or in construction or something, he was basically ended up being part of like a court scholar to the emperor. And one of the things that he was, I was going to say commissioned, but I guess ordered is more appropriate since he was enslaved, to write down was a history of the Jewish people as told by the Jewish people, right? So what he's writing down isn't the result of him going around and digging through primary sources and going to see like original artifacts and skeletons and stuff like that. What he's writing down is the history according to as it was recorded by the Jewish people up to that point, which means that it was only as accurate as what their general consensus of history was, which is to say it wasn't entirely accurate. And we know that. We know that there are things that Josephus said that weren't very accurate. And it's important to remember what he's doing. He is making a pro-Jewish propaganda piece under orders of the emperor who has enslaved him. That's what it is. Is it an important source? Yes. Is it a source that we can just take uncritically and just accept at face value? Absolutely not. It is absolutely not that. Because it is an intentional piece of propaganda trying to show to the Roman Empire how cool and ancient the people of that were then being called the Jews were. That's what it was. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing for him to have done. I probably would have done the exact same thing in his shoes. But we got to remember, Josephus's writings were not just sober, unbiased, literal accountings of history.
What about this? These three guys, Josephus, Magellan, and John Smith, they all commented about the voices of these giants and how they sounded so terrible. Magellan talked about how it sounded like they were speaking from a cave when he encountered a lot of the giants in different regions. Same with John Smith. They specifically said when we encountered giants in our travels, their voices were like next level. They sound like we're coming out of a cave. That's very interesting. Three different people talked about that.
It sounds like you had some people who were sailing around and encountering people who had ways to amplify their voices with resonance. I don't know. It sounds like to me. Did any of them find any skeletons? Because, like, look, right? When we say, oh, hey, this ancient animal existed, right? The way that we tell that that's true is we have a body, right? When someone's like, oh, hey, Dreadnoughtus, largest sauropod ever. We don't just say, oh, yeah, cool, that's nice. we say, okay, well, how do you know? And then they present the bones, and then we say, oh, okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. That does seem like the largest sauropod that we've ever found. Cool, Dreadnoughtus, got it. We don't have that. And remember, Dan's claim for why we don't is that the Smithsonian is hiding the bones. And his evidence for this was to cite a book that the Smithsonian published that Dan said had indications of the giant skeletons being found, but that when I actually checked the book, it didn't have any such indications. Which means Dan, in addition to actually having to provide us with, actual physical evidence of giants, also now has to support the claim of the conspiracy to hide the giants. Because remember, anytime you propose that there's a conspiracy to hide the evidence, you've made your job of proving that you're right harder. Because now, in addition to still needing to provide evidence for the original claim, you also need to provide evidence for the conspiracy. So if I say, oh, the aliens came to Earth, but the government hid them in Area 52, now not only do I have to provide actual physical evidence of the aliens coming to Earth, I also need to provide my evidence for thinking that they're in Area 52.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I said 52. It's 51, isn't it? You know what? No,
Area 51.
It's actually
Yeah.
Area 52. It's one better. It's even more secret. You even more don't know about it. That's what's actually going on there.
Okay.
It's actually Area 52. Actually, sure. I think Area 52 was where the bad guys in one season of Power Rangers hung out. No, two seasons of Power Rangers hung out in Area 52, if I remember correctly.
For those of you that know your UFO kook-lore, I was going to say that S4 would be the place that you would want to go to. Because that's where old dude said that he worked for a bunch of years and that he has pay stubs to prove it.
That he won't show you.
He won't show you. But if he does, it's like, they look kind of fake and they're not super clear, but it's fine.
IT Guru for $2 says, I have no idea what words work for Super Chat. It turns out that basically any of them work. Let's see. Tree Clam Tat for $2 says, oh, good, this is just racism. Yeah, no, that's basically all of what North American giants are. It's just racism. Tree Clam Tad also says, Area 52 better than Area 51 by 1. See, Tree Clam Tad gets it. Tree Clam Tad knows what I was going for. It's like Area 51, but even more secret, even more better. Don't even worry about it, you guys. All right, for $5, Metageeky Platypus Librarian says, the Smithsonian hid the bones in the appendices. Vish, you know about the hiding the data in the appendices meme, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Real quick for anyone in the audience who might not, basically, for a while, a bunch of young Earth creationists were complaining that a paper about genetics had hid the raw data in the appendices, which is, where you put the data. That's just where it is. It's like fork found in kitchen kind of a thing. Like, yep. Mm-hmm.
So what about these earthworks all over America? Well,
okay. I need everyone who might ever hear this, whether or not you're sympathetic to Dan or not, or whether you're into pseudo-archaeology stuff like Graham Hancock or not, or whatever, right? Humans can take dirt from one place and put it in a second place, and then do it again. And that's the technology needed to make earthworks. You need to be able to dig up some dirt in one place, move it to a second place, and put it there. Don't get me wrong, the earthworks made by a lot of Native American cultures were incredibly cool. They had all sorts of artistic motifs worked into them. They formed well-planned out cities. They had ritual and civil significance. And I'm not trying to denigrate how cool a lot of that stuff was, or the degree to which that those cultures had very evident sophistication. However, the fundamental technology of taking dirt and putting it in a pile is not something that you need giants to explain. If you have hands, you can make an earthwork. Especially if you got a bunch of buddies with you to do it with you. I'm taking a drink for how did all these earthworks get there? Humans can't figure out how to pile dirt on top of other dirt. That would be impossible. Tree Clam Tab for $2 says, I will never be sympathetic to Dan. Yeah, it's hard to be sympathetic to a guy that's just going into not only conspiracy theories, but conspiracy theories that have their racism at the surface. Because the thing about conspiracy theories is, for the most part, they pretty much all come down to some form of racial or ethnic bigotry. Sometimes just general white supremacy, sometimes more specifically anti-Semitism. But for a lot of them, you kind of have to scratch to get to that point, right? Like if someone's like, "Oh, the Democrats, they're drinking adrenochrome that they've got from tortured babies." Eventually, when you scratch that, you get to anti-Semitism, but it's a fair few layers down, right? Because at the surface level, you're not talking about the Jews; you're talking about just the Democrats in general, most of whom aren't Jewish. But yeah, you scratch down and you get to blood libel pretty fast. But with the giant mounds, it's right at the surface. No, the Native Americans couldn't possibly have figured out piling dirt on top of dirt into a city. Had to be giants. Not just giants, but giants presumably from the old world. So that way we can pretend that they're like, like white people or something.
No human being would stack dirt like this.
Exactly. Just ignore all those...
I'm surprised that no one in the chat has gotten my reference to S4. We'll see. Where y'all at, UFO folks?
My Unfinished Journey for $2 says, "Hail Daps and Vish, and hail vampires," with a fist emoji and a vampire emoji. I don't think I knew that there was a vampire emoji until just now.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever used it or looked for it.
Oh. Maybe I'm just in too many Vampire the Masquerade chats.
Yes. See, the thing is, I'm not actually active in any part of the World of Darkness like fandom. I'm aware of it. I know a lot of the lore, but like I'm not in any message boards or like email lists or Discord servers. So yeah.
Thank you, DM Wing. Bob Lazar, you got it.
What element was it that Heath said was the key to like the vortex drive?
117.
Yes, the one that we've already discovered.
Which has been synthesized for like fractions of a second, but it degrades really fast.
Doesn't have any of the actual like properties that Bob Lazar says it does.
What a shock!
I know. Tree Clam Tat for $5 says, "It was always the Jews. I knew it was them, even when it was the Bears." Thank you. I do like the meme of like make up a fun or benevolent Jewish conspiracy theory. Like, you ever have one of those days where every time you get to a traffic light, it's green and you just get to just go? Yeah, that was the Jews.
Okay.
Yeah. Or you ever order Chinese food and there's one more fortune cookie than you expected? That was the Jews.
Because you're meant to leave it out for us on Christmas.
Yes. The Jewish tradition of going around to collect extra fortune cookies for their Chinese meals. I gotta be honest though, actually, I have ordered Chinese on Christmas, primarily because they're some of the only restaurants that are open. And you know what? It's a damn fine meal for a nice Christmas when you don't want to have to cook. You just get some. I just get some lo mein, get some like beef lo mein, maybe some egg rolls. Yeah.
Oh
and then I can sit and watch like, I don't know, some goofy Christmas movie that I only kind of like. Or I can watch Violent Night, which is a Christmas movie I do like. Yeah, if you haven't seen Violent Night, you should see Violent Night on a day when you're okay with extreme amounts of violence coming from Santa. Like, have you ever wanted to see Santa cave in someone's head with a giant hammer? Well, go watch Violent Night. IT Guru for $5 says, "Darth Jar Jar is more coherent and supportable hypothesis than the Smithsonian is hiding giants." Correct. That is absolutely true. Yep. Oh, and hey, we hit the goal, so now I can say fuck this guy. And also Arian Rufus, there we go. For 2, what's CHF? I don't know what CHF is. Says unleash.
I will check.
Thank you. For $2, Tree Clam Tad says, "I eat Chinese food on Christmas" is
Swiss
a great
francs.
song. Swiss francs, thank you very much. Really? I get the franc part is sure, whatever. I'm just going to accept it. I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to try to figure it out. Thank you very much. And I will try to remember that CHF is Swiss francs, but I will be honest, it'll probably take me a little while. There's so many currencies out there. But I suppose if I argue that we should just have one currency, then I have in fact become a herald of the Antichrist, according to Dan Biddle. Because nothing says, going against the will of God, like having an integrated global economy.
Standardized currency.
Yeah, like I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one world government conspiracy theory, which also is one of those ones where you don't have to scratch very far before you get to it's the Jews, has always been a weird one to me. Like even when I was an evangelical Christian and they were like, "Oh yeah, the one world government with a single currency," and I was like, "That doesn't seem like that bad. Like why is Satan working on just making my transactions easier? Why is that his goal?" Like that's seems like a weird goal for Satan, but oh, Confederation Helvetica. Okay, sure. I'll believe Guptu 3.
Here's what our database shows. We've got 885 giant reports in North America reported by about 1,200 people.
Bro, a giant report is the same thing as a Bigfoot report. It doesn't mean anything on its own. Right? Same thing with a UFO report. It doesn't mean anything on its own. And I say that as a guy who's seen a UFO.
I have to say something.
Go for it.
Crypto457 writes, I got into the lore of Vampire the Masquerade thanks to Hunter the Parenting by Alpha Busa.
Nice.
Hey, guess who's done voice work for Alpha Busa?
Nice.
Me. Yeah, they reached out to me because they knew that I was like connected to like Dan McClellan and biblical scholarship, which they are into, and also
Okay.
that I study the Inquisition. So I did some consulting with them on how to work in inquisitorial themes and history, and also I did a voice gig for them. So
That's pretty cool.
shout out Alpha Busa.
I have trouble not thinking of the Inquisition from 40K, which is both cooler and worse than the Inquisition from
Yeah.
history.
Yeah.
I'll say this: the Inquisition from history never blew up an entire planet, which is not something I can say for the Inquisition from Warhammer.
Yeah, I sometimes wonder if they had the capability if they would have tried.
Maybe.
But,
Maybe.
you know.
All right, so here's what we're gonna do.
Anyway.
I'm gonna set up a 2-hour super chat goal, but we're not actually gonna be going for another 2 hours fully. But it's gonna be for 20 super chats. It's gonna be for all colors, and we'll do a English as she is spoke reading because we haven't done that in a long while. And if people really object to that, then I can just switch it up to Klingon Hamlet, which I also have on the desk for some reason. Also, yesterday I finished the entire first mission compendium from Star Trek Adventures First Edition. I've now run every single mission in there, and I'm happy about that. Anyway, here we go.
People that reported on over 3,000 giant skeletons, and they overlap in giant themes to the Old Testament. But look at the cluster here. Look at Ohio.
What the fuck does that mean? They overlap in giant themes? In that there are giant themes that people said they have seen giants or that they have found giant skeletons. No actual giant skeletons are forthcoming, by the way. And then is the overlap just that the Bible talks about giants? Is that the entirety of the overlap? What are the other themes? What am I crazy and think that all he just means is that the theme is giant? Because like I don't think that these reports had themes of like, you know, fallen angels coming and having sex with human women. Or like Tree Clam Ted, I declare exterminatus on Dapper. Well, I declare exterminatus back on you. So now what?
Uno reverse.
Yeah. So we'll just have to take it to you know, the Grand Order, or you know, the Grand Master of the Inquisition for the Segmentum Solar, who's probably just the actual High Lord of Terra for the Inquisition. Huh. I guess when you're in Segmentum Solar, the chain of command is a little shorter for the Inquisition. Goes to like each subsector to sector, and then it's just like, oh look, a High Lord of Terra. Warhammer's weird.
Much with giant skeletons that were allegedly found. You can get all these clippings from newspapers and archaeological reports.
Yeah, yes, Dan. Newspapers and also books, not archaeological reports, because I've read some of those books. And do you know what books and newspapers from the early 19th century have in common?
Sensationalism?
Yes. They were just there to sell copies, and no one cared to make them accurate. If you want, I don't know how much I can say this. In order to say that you have archaeological evidence of a thing, you need to physically have the actual archaeological evidence in a place people can go look at it. Right? It needs to be in some kind of institution or museum or something like that where people who are in the field can go look at it. None of it is. And if you say that's because the institutions are hiding it, well, you have to prove that then. Otherwise, this is just all the Bigfoot sightings. You know what we don't have a single shred of for Bigfoot?
Evidence.
Physical evidence. We don't have any of it, which is why it's not actually considered to be a real creature. So, like, get a giant skeleton and put it somewhere where people can check.
It's not always newspapers. There's a lot of archaeological reports mixed in here. Chris Leslie, he's a Christian. He has got a book. He's a giant researcher. His book is called Ohio, 88 Counties of Giants, and he's went back and found historical records.
All right. Now, it seems weird to say he's a Christian when we're talking about, like, archaeological evidence, because who would care, right? But what you might not understand...
doesn't make him more trustworthy unless you're an evangelical.
That's the thing, though. That's who his audience is. For them saying he's a Christian, it automatically boosts him up in trustworthiness because they wrongfully believe that Christians are just more honest than other people. It turns out, though, that they're not. And you know what? Sure, you can pretend that makes them not a real Christian. I don't particularly care. You're wrong. And what it still leaves us with is people who profess to be Christians aren't more trustworthy or less trustworthy on average than people who don't. So it turns out some people are trustworthy and some people aren't, and it does not correlate strongly with religious affiliation. You want to find untrustworthy people? You can find them in all religious communities. You can find untrustworthy Christians. You can find untrustworthy Hindus, Buddhists, Jews, Muslims, all over the place. You want to find trustworthy people, you can also find them in all those groups and more.
For finding giants in every single one of the 88 counties in the entire state of Ohio. And here's what some of the accounts look like in the newspaper clippings. But the interesting thing here is really these earthworks. So there's over 10,000 mounds in Ohio alone. Sometimes they're flying over them now with LiDAR and scanning down.
They are. I'm going to take a drink for that being true. And also, it's super cool. And you should look into that if you're into archaeology. In fact, actually, Minuteman made a fairly big video about the Hopewell Mounds where he went over a lot of the LiDAR research that's being done right now, especially in like uncovering earthworks that are under what's currently like forested area or that are like hard to see because they've been mostly flattened down. But with LiDAR, you can actually see that slight elevation change forming like a long line through the landscape. And it's really, really cool stuff. It's very exciting if you're into archaeology. So like, go check it out. Tree Clam Tat for $5 says, I'm Ordo Hereticus. My authority trumps yours, especially because your worship of the Dragon of Mars scoots further up the tree holding a rosette. I'm sorry, but are you telling me that Ordo Hereticus has higher rank than Ordo Xenos? Because I don't think it does, sir. And I'm sorry, but there's going to be a Death Watch kill team headed your way. So have fun trying to fight them off with some Sisters of Battle. My Unfinished Sock for $5 says, don't fall for racist conspiracy theories. Like and share the stream instead with the Winky's tongue out emoji. Thank you. I agree. Lizard Lass for $4.99 says, I forgot to ask the guides at the Great Circle Earthworks if they were Christian. How do I know if I could trust them? Yeah, I guess you don't know now. It's all up in the air. It could be anything. Who knows? They could all be like heathens, like agnostics or something. You never know. Actually, I did once have someone try to like goad me into being angry about like some tour company in like, I think it was Norway or something, banning Christians because it was a tour specifically for people who were doing like the whole Nordic pagan thing. I was like, no, that seems perfectly reasonable to me. And they're like, but they're excluding the Christians. I'm like, yeah.
Okay.
I don't care. And it was because I had previously said that, like, I think it's okay if a church says, like, no, we want Christians to be the members of our paid staff at this church. Like, yeah, that seems fine to me. Like, you know, it's a religious institution. You want the people who are working for you to be part of that religion. Yeah, okay. I was like, don't you think that's discriminatory? I'm like, yeah, it is discriminatory. I still think that they should be allowed to do it. Whatever. I was like, I bet you wouldn't say the same thing if it was the Christians being discriminated against. I was like, I'll bet you're wrong. I bet I would say that. Because, yeah. I think there are jobs that it's not appropriate for a Christian to have. Like, I don't know, imam. Don't have a Christian imam. Seems weird. IT Guru for $5 says, majority known about Jack the Ripper comes from the majority known about Jack the Ripper comes from London broadsheets and penny dreadfuls, invented details, sensational graphics, forged letters. Yeah, that's another thing, right? Like that whole thing. If you believe everything that was ever written about Jack the Ripper, you're going to believe a lot of stuff that's just not true,
Yeah.
which doesn't really help, historians. But like, it helped the people selling those penny dreadfuls because they got money out of it.
Hmm.
But there's hundreds.
Also, we actually all know that Jack the Ripper was Red Jack, an interdimensional energy being that was able to possess various humans and had been on a murder spree of women across this part of the Milky Way for at least a few hundred years. And fortunately, the crew of the USS Enterprise stopped him.
Okay.
That's from Star Trek, the original series. So that's how we know who Jack the Ripper really was. Energy alien.
Of thousands of mounds in America. And this was all documented by the Smithsonian. You can go see a lot of these today. Some of them are bigger at the base than the Pyramid of Giza. Who's doing all these mounds and why are they doing these mounds?
The Hopewell culture which was, an indigenous culture in the area that built large cities and ceremonial complexes and astronomical observatories. And their main way of making this stuff was making earth mounds and then possibly erecting, more temporary structures on top of that, like for housing and whatnot. And it's fundamentally the same kind of thing that's going on all the way down in like Cahokia, way at the southern end of what's now the United States, right? Like this is a continuous architectural style that goes on roughly simultaneously for hundreds of years across North America. And all the bodies are all just normal human bodies. We don't have any actual documented giants. So who was building the earth mounds? Probably the people who we found buried associated with the earth mounds. Just like if you walked into a cemetery today and you said, hey, who made this cemetery? Well, it's probably the people, or at least the relatives of the people who were buried in the cemetery. Probably. Megan Fox with Giant Boobs for $5 says, Jack the Ripper was clearly a time-traveling Mr. Hyde. I saw it in a comic book once. Oh, so you're saying that Star Trek lied to me? That's possible. Also, we not that long ago did the Star Trek Enterprise episode where they find the Borg, and I hate that episode because of how violently it just takes whatever sense of continuity Star Trek had and just breaks it in half.
That was the First Contact episode, right?
Yeah, where they referenced the events of First Contact because it had come out not that long earlier.
I liked that episode.
Look, as a standalone episode, it's a fun episode, but I don't like the fact that it just does not fit in with the continuity at all.
Star Trek and consistent canon and timelines.
They've never been great, but they have been better than that. It's one of the reasons I don't like Discovery. The other reason is that Discovery makes me depressed and makes me consider self-harm.
Oh.
So I don't watch it. Because every time I watch it, I feel like I should go take a shower and scrub myself with steel wool. Don't do that. Tree Clam Tat for $5 says, Dapper's misogyny won't protect him from the Adeptus Sororitas. That's true, it won't. What will protect me is, the transhuman warriors taken from legions of Space Marine chapters, all backed with, like, Land Raiders and such. Do the Adeptus Sororitas have... I think they do have Land Raiders. Fuck. They do have Land Raiders. God damn it. Do they have Thunderhawks? No, I don't think so. And they don't have Librarians either. So... What? They don't have librarians in the same sense, at least. They probably do have some people who run libraries. But that's not the main purpose of a Space Marine librarian. Their main purpose is to cast Force Lightning out of their hands and smite people. St. Shlomo for $10 says, I work for a tribe-owned casino on indigenous sovereign land. They say several times during their hiring process that they prioritize tribe members over non-members. That's totally fair as far as I care. Yeah, it's owned by the tribe, but they should prioritize people who are in the tribe. Yeah.
Sovereign land.
Yeah, look, I am someone who supports the idea that, like, you can have a, like, religious or, like, indigenous first, like, private thing, like a club or a job. I'm okay with it. I think that sometimes it's a little weird, but like whatever. Like if there was like a Catholic hospital and was like, oh, we're not hiring this nurse, she's Protestant, I'd be like, that's weird. But like, okay. IT Guru for $2 says that's why you don't hire Buffy writers for Trek. Yeah. Metageeky for $2 says, didn't the Vorlons kidnap Jack the Ripper? I don't remember that, but like, maybe. All right, we are going to take a quick break because we have hit the hour mark, and I'm going to get myself some refreshed beverage. Feel free to go get yourself some new beverages. You know, take a bio break, whatever you need to. We will be back in just a few minutes, and in the meantime, you can listen to the wonderful musical stylings of Bent Hovind, no relation. And yeah, we will be right back. Hey, we are back. Thank you for sticking with us, those of you who did, which looks like it was basically everyone. All right, so we are now at that halfway point. We're also at the halfway point with the second of the super chat goals. So thank you very much for that. I do want to say that this is a little commercial bit that I do in the middle of streams. This channel is almost entirely supported directly through the support of viewers, whether it be through the Patreon, channel memberships, super thanks, super chats, gifted memberships, all that stuff. It really does help, and it really does add up. If you enjoy what I do here, you want to make sure that I can keep doing it. There are a few great ways to help. The biggest one is the Patreon, followed in close second by the channel memberships. The Patreon starts at $1 a month. Membership start at $1.99. The Patreon has a 15% discount. There we go. For if you pledge annually. So the cheapest option on the Patreon is $10 for a 1-year membership. It's slightly over $10, but it's pretty close. And yeah, both of those give you early access to my scripted videos. We're about 5 months ahead right now. It gives you access to my Discord server, which is generally a pretty chill place. Every once in a while, there's a little bit of drama, but I feel like it usually gets resolved. There we go, pretty quickly. The Patreon is where I get to keep the most of the money, but the memberships do also come with, you get your name to be green in chat. You get a cool channel badge. You get access to the channel emojis. If an annual or a monthly pledge isn't your thing, there's also 2 wish lists in the description. One is my throne wish list, which has things like books, snacks, some items of clothing. And that's just, you can send it to me and I'll be happy about it and I'll thank you on stream. There's also a Steam wish list in case you want to get me a video game. That's where I play pretty much all my video games, is on Steam. And there's also a merch store. And if you don't like anything that's in the merch shelf that's right below this video, click through to the actual store. There's more stuff there in case any of that catches your fancy. I basically make almost no money from the merch store, but I do really like it when people send me pictures of their Dapper Dinosaur merch that they received. Whether it be them wearing a Dapper Dinosaur shirt, or like a picture of the Dapper Dinosaur blanket or mug or whatever, right? I really, really, really like it when people send me those things because it makes me happy, even though like you buy a Dapper Dinosaur mug and I make like $1.50. So like it basically doesn't exist in terms of an income stream, but it's really fun for me. So that is basically it, except for, you can render for me. So if you want me to help get my animations done in a timely fashion, there's a section of my description called How to Render for Me. You go to that website, you download the client that's appropriate for your OS, and you just start it up and use the login information that's in the description, and that will basically help me have higher priority when I need to render stuff, or if I am rendering stuff, your computer may download my projects to render frames from if your computer can handle my frames, which not everyone can, because my animations do tend to be a little bit intense, but, it is what it is. All right, I think that is it. Yeah, unless Vishanti, you want to show for anything? All right, here we go.
And over 500 enclosures and lots of different earthworks. The earthworks are the ones that sometimes were.
Oh, Jack tested Dellen and Sheridan for worthiness. Okay, that I don't remember that, but like I believe you.
Built in correlation with the sun, moon, and stars, but there's lots of these structures, and lots of them were designed for rituals. And this picture over here of the map
that's true. Take a
was
drink.
done by the Smithsonian, where they documented all these huge mounds and earthworks that are all along the Mississippi Valley there. So lots of earthworks, lots of mounds, including the.
Is that the Hopewell Road? It is. All right.
Mm-hmm.
You know what?
Hey.
If there's one thing I want people to take away from this, is that there's some really cool, like, indigenous American archaeology that's going on in Ohio, and you should be aware of it, and you should look into it. The Great Hopewell Road is what it sounds like. It was a gigantic road that seems to have linked 2 different ritual sites. And like, I don't know, I like to imagine that there might have been like religious processions that went down the entire length of the road. And I say that because religious processions are actually a pretty, it's a kind of universal thing. Like, it happens in a lot of different cultural contexts, right? Like, there are Hindu processions, there are Catholic processions, there are there are processions in all sorts of contexts. And so like, I don't actually have any evidence for this, but I like to imagine that because some of these ritual sites were celestially aligned, that there was some kind of like New Year's celebration or harvest celebration or something like that that went from one site to the other, and that there was a big like crowd following along. I think that'd be really cool. It's at least plausible, unlike giants. Free Clam Chat for $5 says, support Dapper or we won't get more Kip derogatory. With an AIG as a bag of dicks emoji. We'll take a drink for that. Thank you. Look, when you next see Kip, here's my message that you can send Kip if you want to. Kip, when I ask you if you're going to be on the stream, don't tell me about your life circumstances first. Just say yes or no, and then tell me about your life circumstances. Because I have asked this man like 4 times if he's going to be on the show today, and he just keeps telling me about his life circumstances. And I'm like, that's not a no.
Well, the implication is that no, there's a lot going on.
Then just say that. I don't want to have to infer things. I want to be told things so that I don't.
He thinks you're smart.
I am smart, but I also don't trust myself. Ian Kiambi for £10 says, who are your favorite educational channels? I like Professor Dave the most. I like Professor Dave. I like a Mini Minute Man, like I just mentioned. I like Flint Dibble. I obviously like the rest of the science friends. I like Forrest Valkai. I like
Mhm.
PBS, their various educational channels like PBS Space Time, PBS Eon, stuff like that. Benji Thomas has some pretty good, especially paleontology stuff. I don't know. I think those are the educational type channels that come to mind off the top of my head that I regularly watch. Esoterica. I like Esoterica, although that's a
Yeah,
very
oh yeah,
different template.
Esoterica.
Um,
I was gonna say Andy White, who has a whole series on giants that we referenced and is an archaeologist as well, has collaborated with Milo before and has exposed like the white supremacist, theme of Ignatius Donnelly's crap about Atlantis
oh yeah.
and hyperdiffusionism. So his channel name is Nobody Cares About Andrew, I think. Or
Oh
Nobody
yeah, I
Listens to
have
Andrew,
seen
something
that
like that.
channel. I do like that
Yeah.
channel too. Yeah.
Love that guy. I used to watch World of Antiquity with David Miano, but he did a review of Flint Dibble's debate and he used AI generated thumbnail for it. And
Yay.
people were not happy. And I was one of many people who were like, bro, you're, upholding the slave trade for the minerals that run these data centers and gobbling up all the water and stealing from artists. And he just did not want to hear it. He just did not want to hear it. He didn't understand or care or see that it was, scraping human artists' work and shitting out something much less quality. And I was like, you know what? If he's just going to double down on it, then I just don't really need to engage with this channel anymore. So I stopped. And that sucks because he apparently has stopped using AI thumbnails. But I'm like, dude, I can't.
Yeah. If I see you use an AI thumbnail, there's an extremely high chance that I'm going to tell YouTube to not recommend your channel to me anymore, and I am going to forget that you ever existed.
Mhm.
I have definitely had days where I have had up to 6 channels that I was just like, nope, don't recommend this channel anymore, just for the thumbnail. I don't want to see it. I don't want it anywhere in my timeline. But also, Kip and Dan McClellan are also good if you want to go for the biblical studies. And when I said esoterica, that's for basically the study of historical magical practices. He's not going to teach you to cast spells. He's going to teach you how ancient people thought about things like spells and sorcery and magical amulets and things like that, right? Because it's an actual fact of history that people did these things. Did they do the things they thought they would? No, because magic isn't real as it turns out. But it's still an interesting part of how people live their lives. Tree Clam Tad for $200 says Dr. Justin Sledge and Dr. Dan McClellan are great. They sure are. Yep.
Kip, also Digital Hammurabi. So Dr. Josh Bowen and Megan Lewis. Bart Ehrman, obviously. Bible and Archaeology, that's from University of Iowa. Jordan Jones runs that. Let me think. What was another channel? Oh, CJ Cornthwaite, Apologia.
Yeah.
All of those are various things. Let's see. Someone in the chat is asking me if Forrest Valkai is anti-Semitic. I haven't heard him say anything anti-Semitic. I mean, the only criticism that I have of him at all is his anti-theism is like a dodgeball that he tries to hurl at Christian hegemony, and he ends up hitting Jews with it.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing that pisses me off, and it's very frustrating. I did a whole live stream on some of this, and it's like, guys, if you want to fight against Christian hegemony, just say Christianity. Don't say religion, say Christianity. Because, hey, in the United States of America, that's what you have experience with.
Yeah.
You don't have experience with Shinto. You don't have experience with, like, animism. You don't have experience with indigenous religions or Buddhism or anything like that. Just say Christianity.
Or you can even be more specific and go with like evangelical Christianity, because I'll also tell you, it's not like it's the St. Thomas Christians of India who are oppressing you. I promise. They're not doing a damn thing. Yeah, the Sikhs aren't doing it. Yeah. It's not even the Copts, of whom there are some in America.
Yeah, seriously, it's not Coptic Christians. Yeah, I agreed. Tree Clam Tad mentions Joel Baden's new podcast, Misquoting Moses, with one of my former classmates, Megan, who was his co-host. So,
neat.
yeah, that was a really good episode.
All right, I'm gonna hit play because I'm starting to get thirsty. I don't want to drink for some dumb stuff, and unless someone starts gifting memberships, I need to get more
Noise
drink
Ending
triggers
is
in.
asking what live stream I did. Oh, I have a mirror of it on my channel. I did it with Jordan from Reason to Doubt. We talked about anti-Semitism in the atheist community, and anti-theism does come up. So,
Yeah,
you know,
it was a good stream.
I wish I didn't have to do it.
Yeah, well,
Great Hopewell Road. It's a 56-mile road connecting these two different complexes. There was some amazing stuff going on in America about 3,000 years ago.
True.
This
Take
is
a
not
drink.
Conspiracy stuff. This is mainstream archaeology. There's lots of books written about.
Yes, Dad. This part is mainstream archaeology, but you notice how none of this has any necessary connection to giants? Oh, speak of Tree Clam Tad just gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships, which means I could take 5 drinks, which is good because, like I said, I'm thirsty. So while I take 5 drinks, what's your favorite clan of werewolves from the World of Darkness, Vishanti?
Black Spiral Dancers.
I like the Glasswalkers because I like the idea of being a hacker who's also a werewolf.
I'm just shit posting, essentially.
That's okay. Oh, I forgot to increment the counter, which means that I take another drink for Dapper's a professional.
Let's see. Oh, Saloof is asking me, can I be against people convincing themselves and their children to believe undemonstrable and untrue things as absolutely true, but still support harmful cultural traditions? You could mind your business and stop thought policing, which is something that I notice a lot of anti-theists doing. Yes, there are harmful ways to think, and sometimes supernatural beliefs are part of that. However, there are much bigger problems going on with the thoughts jumbling around in people's head. And if someone thinks ghosts are real, I don't care. If someone thinks that the Holy Spirit is a tangible force that manifests in the world, okay, cool. I'm not going to try to talk you out of it.
No, see, that's the
if you're a
motive force.
racist, if you're a racist, on the other hand, I'm going to have some problems. So I know that there's a common, but whatever they think, it reflects on how they vote and blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, you really need to get some intersectional analysis and like class and race analysis, because people's motivating force for a lot of what they want to think of as religious beliefs are just racism.
Yeah, I don't think that belief in ghosts has a lot of correspondence in terms of like how you vote. And the same is also true for just believing in God. There are a lot of people who believe in God and do not vote like, say, Republican in the United States. I mean, heck, one of the big Democratic candidates in the U.S. right now is a Christian pastor in Texas. So James Talrico, that's his first name, is James, right? Yeah. I don't agree about everything James says, but he's clearly not a Republican, and he clearly believes in God.
Yeah. And like, there's another thing. It's like, look, again, when people were, I think this was back in the 50s-ish. It's called the Southern Strategy. It is incredibly effective. It's how to, radicalize, Republican voters. And people who were Christians largely did not care about abortion. It was like, okay, I mean, it wasn't like you go out in the street and announce it, but it was like, okay, whatever. And after the Southern Strategy picked up steam, it was one of those things that it was racism that turned evangelicals against it.
Yep, because they had basically lost the fight against segregation, so they had to have some other new way to organize. Also,
I mean, these are things that are fairly recent. Salif was saying, I watched my mom spiral down a hole from ghosts are real to Atlantis was real and the aliens are going to show themselves soon. Like, yeah, there's a slippery slope, but I would say just my personal take is that people's cultural, religious, whatever stuff is a separate issue from conspiracies.
Yeah,
Like,
there aren't too many cultures who are like, part of my culture is believing in Bigfoot. Is it?
yeah,
Is it though?
yeah, like there are indigenous folks who believe in skinwalkers or for whom skinwalkers are part of their tradition. Okay, that doesn't mean that they're like, oh, well, they're actually interdimensional aliens and they're going to come abduct. Like that's guys,
They're
come on.
also just humans
Um,
wearing animal skins and casting and like doing dark magic. They're not also
right.
shape-shifting demons.
Yeah, that's another thing, just Western nonsense. But IT Guru says, am I allowed? I'm not allowing or disallowing people from anything.
No,
I
you're
don't know
actually
why
the
people ask
queen
that.
of this entire community.
To be pissed off at the assholes who convinced my aunt that my uncle absolutely needed acupuncture because it would treat his lupus.
Yes.
You don't need my permission. I get
Go
pissed off
for it.
about that all the time because
I'm
science
already pissed
works.
off about
You know
it.
what we call alternative medicine that works? Medicine.
IT Guru for $5 says the quote Southern strategy is how evangelicals sold segregation and anti-abortion as a proxy for white supremacy,
Mhm.
apartheid, racism in the USA. Yep, that is correct.
Yep.
Um,
Correct.
Yep. And they actually co-opted a lot of Catholics in doing so because the anti-abortion thing was primarily a Catholic thing, which
Yep.
evangelicals just didn't care about until around the same time as like Bob Jones University. Which, by the way, don't
Yeah.
name your Christian school Christian Academy because the history of the organizations known as Christian academies is basically an excuse to set up whites-only schools after desegregation. Just come up with a different name. Don't call
Mm.
yourself a Christian academy.
About
Yeah.
these things,
I
but I want
just I get really I don't want to say defensive, but I get very nervous when people start trying to be the arbiter of what is acceptable belief and what's not acceptable belief, because that really starts running into a lot of like Western chauvinism culturally. And it's really a lot of like post enlightenment rationality and objective truth and it is one of those things that easily can lead into cultural genocide. So leave people alone unless they're causing active harm, replacing, proper medical treatment with BS. Otherwise, try to be a little more pluralistic. But again, that's my take.
IT Guru says my grandparents were kicked out of Liberty University for being an interracial couple. Yeah, I'm gonna take a drink because that makes my brain hurt. That's. I mean, on the one hand, maybe they dodged a bullet because Liberty University fucking sucks.
Seriously, they do.
But also, yeah, that's some bullshit.
Yeah, it is.
us to view it from a biblical lens and consider the fact that some of these things were designed with human sacrifices that were going on. And
Do you know that? Because I don't know that. I don't think anyone knows that. Is it possible? Yes. I have never heard of any evidence that would indicate that these were sites for ritual human sacrifice. I can't say they weren't, but that's the difference between me and Dan Biddle. I don't know, so I'm not going to take a stance.
It's okay to say I don't know.
But, he has to connect this to the pre-flood world where everything is evil, and that's the influence of the Nephilim. So obviously, since the giants built these mounds of dirt because humans can't pile dirt on top of dirt, then obviously they were also doing all the vile stuff from before, which probably included human sacrifice, because of course it would, right? Why not?
Of course. Also, I will say that this is part of the larger sociological, I guess, difference between evangelicals and A, a lot of other Christians, and B, non-Christians, is that these types, like Dan Biddle, are just terrified by uncertainty. Absolutely shit scared. They can't say I don't know. They can't admit they don't know. They have to come up with answers for everything. And it's like, guy, you cannot know things. It's okay. And it's okay to say that because, hey, we're always learning. And when you make declarative statements and then find out later that you're wrong, you either have to double down or embarrass yourself.
All right, here's what we need to do. We need to infiltrate evangelical Christianity and introduce them to the concept of apophatic theology. Because if you get into apophatic theology, then maybe you'll be more okay with like ambiguity and not knowing. You think they'll be amenable to apophatic theology? Probably not. That's too fancy. Although, interestingly, it is actually one of those weird little contact points between certain strains of Christianity and certain aspects of Judaism that don't seem to have actually depended on each other, but ended up converging into like weirdly similar places.
Yeah.
Which I always find interesting when separate religions end up converging on a similar idea. That doesn't seem like an obvious thing that they should have converged on. Not because I think that necessarily lends it credence or anything. I just find it interesting when humans end up thinking the same way about the same topics independently.
Yeah, it's almost like we're really, really similar to each other with all these superficial differences.
No, that's crazy.
Number of the places were built in express prohibition of what the Old Testament God said. Don't ever worship the sun, moon, and stars. God's like,
got heresy detected.
Also, okay, I'm taking another drink.
Actual, literal, historical heresy.
Mm-hmm. Also, my guy, you don't know what they were doing in regards to the sun other than observing it and having some kind of ritual associated with it. You have rituals associated with the sun. It's called New Year's Day. If you celebrate New Year's, you are celebrating a ritual associated with the sun, because the way that we keep track of when New Year's is when the sun returns to a certain spot in the sky. Like, there is a difference between having rituals associated with the sun and the moon and worshiping the sun and the moon. And one of the ways you can tell is that all of the Old Testament holidays were associated with the calendar, and the calendar itself was calibrated by the sun and the moon. So
literally, it's like an agricultural type calendar.
So unless you want to say,
lines up with equinoxes and solstices, full and new moons.
Right. So like, unless you want to say that every single holiday that God commands people to celebrate in the Bible are in fact against the express commandments of God, then you don't get to say that having a solar observatory that is also a ritual site is expressly against the commands of God. Because I'm sorry, but God commands a whole bunch of lunisolar holidays. I'm taking another drink. I can't. What?
Studying how the sun works.
It's kind of important for an agricultural society, you know?
It would make sense why a lot of human cultures built structures that lined up with certain times of the year to show you where the sun is at. It might have something to do with planting, harvesting.
Nah, impossible. It's actually all sun worship. That's the only reason to ever consider where the sun is in the sky. Only sun worship. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that the Hopewell peoples didn't worship the sun. I'm again saying we don't know, and you can't go from solar observatory that is also a ritual site to therefore worshiping the sun per se. Now, they probably had some religious significance to do with the sun, but so did the ancient Israelites.
Mm-hmm. Goop 3 for $2 writes that birthdays are also essentially tracking the sun. I mean,
to some degree, yeah.
Come on. That's one of the things, like, Jehovah's Witnesses are against celebrating birthdays.
They are.
It's non-biblical holiday.
Maybe they were right the whole time, because celebrating a birthday is actually worshiping the sun.
I'm like, okay. I'm
not serious about that, by the way. Tree Clam Chat for $2 says, fuck the sun, scoots further up the tree. That's gonna hurt, by the way. That's gonna burn if you try to fuck the sun. Don't do that. I don't recommend. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know for certain, but like, I would say.
Oh man, IT Guru says that the United Daughters of the Confederacy are the source of so many of the USA's problems. Yeah,
correct.
They are. Oh, Atun Shea mentioned in chat.
Also a good one.
Excellent
yeah,
filmmaker.
I don't know how I forgot that.
Yes.
I actually started a series on Gone with the Wind, which has been interesting. And yes, it is very racist. And yes, it is also a very, very good film. It turns out that the quality of art and the ability of that art to tell have a good or a bad message are not very tightly linked. There's a lot of really good but really bad art.
Also, I was going to say that one of the reasons that we don't know a lot about people's culture is that there's no continuity. Partially because of colonial genocide. So it's really important that there's continuity of some kind for cultures if you want to learn more about them. because just looking at the stuff they built is only going to give you a teeny tiny little fraction of a percentage as to like
I will
what
say
things meant.
that the mound building cultures do seem to have largely collapsed a few centuries before European contact. So this is probably one of the ones that we can't directly lay at the feet of colonialism. Yeah, there is that thing.
About what years were those?
I'm pretty sure that the mound building societies collapsed in like the 15th or 16th centuries. So it seems like it probably wasn't directly connected, although it could have been some kind, like it still could have been some kind of plague or something. Like it's a little up in the air, but like by the time that European societies get to them, they seem to have already been gone for a while, to the point that like the exact purposes of all these things weren't even known by the indigenous people living there at the time when Europeans show up.
Yeah. Like when I would say for non-Spain and Portugal colonization, North American indigenous folks, combination of like society collapse, it could have been famine, could have been disease, whatever, war. But also because of the Spanish, disease did spread through like parts of North America and wiped out like millions of people. So
it was something
it's
like 90%
a lot
of
of
the
different
population.
is like a lot of different factors.
Yeah.
Sucks.
In fact, it turns out that colonialism affected people who weren't even being colonized.
Mm-hmm.
Isabella Tracer for 999 says, as I understand it, the main argument JWs use against birthdays is that every time a birthday is celebrated in the Bible, it ends in death. Not XJW, though, so it might be wrong. No, that is the main reason that they give. Although, also, just because the Watchtower says that this is the reason for something, that doesn't mean it's actually the reason. For instance, their long-standing prohibition on beards, which has recently actually been relaxed, but their long-standing thing, they were like, well, we want to be presentable in the modern world. The actual real answer is that when the original founder died, he had a beard, and then the next guy who took over, which was, I believe, Charles Taze Russell, he didn't have a beard. He wanted everyone to forget about the original guy. So he was like, all right, no more beards.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just one guy's vanity that caused that.
Yeah.
Light in the Ignorance for $5 says, I'm surprised JW still don't do birthdays with all they've clarified in the last decade, transfusion, second coming, etc. So one thing is, I do want to say they have not actually removed the prohibition against transfusion overall. What they've changed is that you may accept your own blood back, because sometimes when you're going into surgery or something, a doctor will say like, hey, we'd like to draw some blood in case you need some more blood later, because we know that your blood is obviously going to be perfectly compatible and we can store it. So like a few days or like a few weeks or something before you actually go in, we could just take some blood and have that on standby. And the Jehovah's Witnesses have recently said that it is up to you, up to your Christian conscience, is I believe the phrase that they used, whether or not to accept your own blood back. But it's still prohibited to use anyone else's blood for that purpose. So they are... Now, don't get me wrong. It's good that they've changed this. And also that rule that you couldn't even accept transfusions of your own blood killed people. They have blood on their hands, ironically. And they still do, because they're still prohibiting most blood transfusions, because most blood transfusions aren't your own blood. So, like, they still have a lot of blood on their hand, but it is an improvement, and I'm glad that they moved in the right direction. More people will still be alive after surgery as a result of them loosening this restriction. And I don't want just mass deaths of Jehovah's Witnesses, even though they think I do.
Sorry, I was reading the chat.
No, it's all right. The Screen Geek for €5 says, hey, yo, I'm on vacation in Finland right now. Best regards to everyone. I'll catch up on my flight back on Wednesday. Don't be Bilbos and hit like. See ya. Thank you very much. And that I will add in here. All right.
There's a conversation about religion,
hey,
again, usually just code for evangelical Christianity, and proselytizing, which most religions on the planet, they don't do. And Fearmonger writes, the Druze would like to introduce themselves. Oh wait, no, they wouldn't.
All right, we hit the super chat goal, so that means it is time for some English as she is spoke.
Oh boy.
All right. Are you guys ready for let's see. We're only going to do a little bit. Just do a little bit. All right.
Tree
This
Climb
is.
Ted says you skipped a super chat.
I skipped a super
Oh,
chat. Oh, did I?
Tree Climb Tad for $2. Don't tell me what the fuck.
Oh, I did forget to say that one. Yeah. All right. You know what? I'm still gonna recommend
man.
Against Fucking the Sun. All right. This is The Hunting, everybody. There is it some game in this wood. Another time there was plenty, some black beasts and thin game, but the poachers have killed almost all. Oh, that's sad. Look, a hare who run. Let do him to pursue for the hounds. It go oneself in the plowed land. Hear that it rouse. Let aim it. Let make fire him. I have pulled down killed. Me, I have failed it. My gun have misfixa. There's an E at the end of fix. That's why I said fixa. I see a hind. Let leave to pass away. Don't distort it. D-I-S-T-U-R-T-E. Distort. Okay. I have heard that it is plenty partridges this year. That's partridges with the 2 Ds. Partridges. Have you killed also some thrushes? Here certainly is a very good hunting. And then we get the fishing. That pond, it seems me, many multiplied of fishes. Let us amuse rather to the fishing. I do like it too much. Here there is a wand and some hooks. I like that it's a wand. It's another one of those, like, I see where you're getting this from French. Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, next word.
Yeah.
Silence. There is a superb perch. Give me quick the rod. There it is. There is. It is a lamprey. That's not a perch. You mistake you. It is a frog. Dip again it in the water. I'm sorry, you thought you saw a perch, then someone else thought it was a lamprey, but it turns out it was a frog? These are extremely different animals. Well, there we go, everybody. There is some English as she is spoke. If that didn't make perfect sense as English, you just don't speak English right.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to hit play. Oh, we're actually earlier than I thought we were. Nice.
That's forbidden, but these guys were doing it. They were obsessed with doing it, and these things are all over the place. Well, here's the 20 different tribes that talk about the giants. And
Dan, the idea what if a guy, but bigger, is not something that's hard to come up with. The fact that multiple people groups came up with the idea of what if guy, but big, is not particularly persuasive. Like, what if thing but bigger is about as basic as it gets. In fact, that's basically an entire category of monsters in D&D. It's the dire category. It's like, what's a dire horse? It's like a horse but bigger. What's a dire rat? It's like a rat but bigger. And it was just based on the dire wolf, which people used to think was basically just a wolf. But bigger. But bigger is about as simple as it gets. In fact, every once in a while, I see some shorts on YouTube by a guy whose entire channel seems to be, what if I made a food, but either bigger or smaller? He made a big grape once. Basically, he pureed a bunch of grapes and then used some kind of solidifying agent and a mold to turn them into a giant grape. And then he coated it with something that, like, I think it was like a cellulose coating or something, so it had like the similar like texture to a giant grape.
IT Guru for $2 writes, "Don't fuck Kirk's emerald green polished stalactite." Good.
Nice.
Man. Also, some of these cultures, they're still around. They still are, passing on their cultural markers and rituals.
I think pretty much all of them are, although he also has some repeats. Like, you might notice that he has Micmac twice, which is... He also has Cree twice? No, one is Creek, sorry.
Creek?
Creek, yeah. Let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also want to point out that Navajo are not an entirely separate group from Northwest Coast natives, because it turns out that the Navajo are a group that basically emigrated from the northwest of North America down into the southwest. And there are actually oral traditions on both sides of that migration about a tribe splitting off and heading south. Templar Warden for 5 Kiwi Buck says, Is it a perch? It's a lamprey. No, it's a frog. No, it's Aquaman. Insert Godzilla and Carmen here. I will take a drink for Godzilla and Carmen. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, let's update the tracker. Oh, I almost made a error. There we go. All right, here we go.
Number of these tribes would say emphatically that they were here and they were 7 to 10 feet tall and they had red hair and they were Caucasian.
Okay. So a few things. I'm going to take a drink.
No.
Yeah, first, no tribe has legends about Caucasian giants because Caucasian is a socially constructed category that didn't exist when any of these tribes were around before, Europeans infected them with the sort of weird idea of races. So no. Also, the red hair actually doesn't usually come up. So that's just not true. Yeah. In fact, a lot of the times that people tell stories based on native stories and then include details of pale skin and red hair, it's actually not in the original account. And I know because I've checked several of them. Isabella Tracer for $4.99 says AIG is a bag of Kirk's M-O. No, you already. No, that is a new one.
Polished stalactites.
Yes, AIG is a bag of Kirk's emerald green polished stalactites. I will take a drink. Thank you very much. Sorry, I thought I'd already read it because it was similar to the other one. All right, then. Evans Drisland. I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to say your name. Let me know how to say it. If you can, use the International Phonetic Alphabet. For 20, Nokia's says Dire Dapper. That would be cool.
Crypto457 follows up with Dire Chicken, and Chris Decker says Dire-nosaur.
Ah, nice. All right. Norwegian kroner. No, they're Nokias.
Yeah, they're Nokias.
Yeah. That makes them the most indestructible currency to super chat in.
Richards3648 says, I say we petition to rename lobsters dire prawns.
You know what? I do like that.
That sounds cool, actually.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. Dire prawn. I second this.
That's just what the reports say. It's not just, I wouldn't say it if it was one. Several of the native.
Okay, this whole I wouldn't say it. Dude, you have said so many bullshit things. You have told me that you think that the scientific consensus among paleontologists is that all dinosaurs died at the end Cretaceous. All of them, not just the ones that were alive at the end Cretaceous, but the ones from the Triassic and the Jurassic and the rest of the Cretaceous as well. You think that the mainstream position in paleontology is that all dinosaur fossils are the result of the Chicxulub impact. You telling me like, well, I wouldn't tell you unless
stupid.
It means nothing because you have said some of the stupidest things that I have ever heard come out of the mouth of someone who is neither named Spur nor Hovind. You have said things that are so stupid, I would expect Jaren... No, not Jaren. Jaren's... We'll go with... Jaren's been cool lately. That I wouldn't expect JM Truth to say. Go with JM Truth. The guy who spelled his own name wrong in the credits to his own movie. The guy who gave us Upbanded.
He won't get spell checkers or assistants or editors because he's too much of an egotist.
Well, and he's also Torah compliant, don't you know? That was the facial expression that was the goal of me mentioning that he considers himself to be a Torah compliant Christian.
Okay. Those are literally contradictory, but fine.
No, you see, he doesn't eat pig. He also apparently doesn't bathe. I don't know if that's in the Torah or not.
He's balding, but he grew out dreadlocks.
Yeah, he did. Which I don't believe don't cut your hair. I'm pretty sure that's not a mandatory thing in the Torah.
It's only for people who are on the Nazirite vow, and that's temporary.
Well, how do you know he's not on a Nazirite vow?
Permanently? What is he, Samson?
Maybe it's just a long-term one. Maybe he'll give it up in a few years.
Weird.
Well, yeah, he's JM Truth. He's the man who said that fire is the element by which the sun produces heat and therefore it needs oxygen. And who spelled his name wrong in the credits of his own movie. Templar Warden for 2 Kiwi Bucks says he wouldn't say it unless he already believes it. Now that is true.
Yeah.
Reclaim says for $2, Austin Whitsitt codec. Oh no.
Ugh.
Jeez. Austin Whitsitt has been trying to like get back in with some of the Flurf communities, and no one wants him there. It's been hilarious. Every time he shows up
Suck.
in like a Flurf Discord server, everyone is against him, and I love it. Because like everyone is either like, hey, you were part of the conspiracy of the final experiment, which is dumb and stupid, but still funny. Or they're just rightfully calling him out for being an abusive piece of shit. So like, you know. And I guess technically he's an alleged abusive piece of shit. However, I've also heard the audio files, so it is my personal opinion, but not a matter of fact, that Austin Whitsitt is in fact an abusive piece of shit.
Reports report that characteristic, and they say they were into cannibalism and all kinds of dark spiritual stuff. But the Native Americans did not like them. In fact, some of them report in their histories that we can go back and look as was recorded by European scholars. They actually formed alliances to battle some of these giant tribes as they went south along the Mississippi.
Yeah, that couldn't just be an exaggeration of an actual conflict between tribes that is then exaggerated for basically legendary effect, you know? Because people like to have legendary heroes in their history who fought against overwhelming inhuman odds. Yeah, there's a reason why everywhere the Greeks went, they were like, oh, hey, you have stories about Hercules too, huh? Or I guess suppose Heracles, since we're talking about Greeks. Yeah, they didn't, though. What they had is their own legendary heroes who did a bunch of nonsense that sounds really cool, but that didn't actually happen, at least not as described. It's a similar kind of thing that happens all over the place. Oh, there was this, people group that we all hated. They were evil. We banded together to kill them. What actually happened? It's probably just another ordinary people group that there was an alliance against because they had some resources that the other people in the alliance wanted, so they kicked them out. Because it turns out that just like everyone else, the indigenous people of the Americas weren't some kind of like amazing saints who never actually killed people for their stuff. They were people. And one of the things people do is kill other people for their stuff. It sucks and it's shitty, but it happens everywhere. And if your ancestors were the victors of that, maybe you want to remember them as more heroic than they actually were.
And some of that stuff is in our movie. Here's how this isn't all 20, but this is some of the main tribes that talk about giants and where they're located. Here's one. This is from the annual report, 1881, the Bureau of Ethnology. It's a Smithsonian publication. So some Native American historians were actually drawing what they thought these giants looked like, and they said, look,
did the natives draw that, or did whoever published this book in English draw it?
So it's from the Smithsonian Bureau of Ethnology, and I guess it's the next year's book, because when last time I looked, it was 1890, and this is apparently 1891. And this looks like it was done in like some kind of watercolor on paper. But then again, given that it's 1891, that doesn't make it European, even though that's an art form largely imported from European cultures. I don't know. So a stone giant.
When we find children's books drawing Paul Bunyan, that means giants are real?
Yes, that is proof positive of the reality of giants. Yep. Also, this is apparently a stone giant. Does Dan think that the Nephilim were made of stone?
Thought those were over in like Northern Europe.
Yeah. Or they're
Trolls.
just the giants that live underground and think the surface world is imaginary, and so it doesn't matter what they do up there. D&D lore drop right there.
Ah.
Yeah.
They were like made of stone. They were really, really big, and the only way we could kill them was by hitting them in the face, because our arrows were less effective than on other things. So they.
Dan, okay, hold on. I'm going to speak to you like you're ever going to listen to this. Do you really think that a giant made of stone who's only vulnerable in the face is an actual plausible thing to take seriously as a historical event? Is that actually what you think? Because it's hard for me to tell, because on the one hand, That's fucking crazy, dude. That's absolutely fucking insane for anyone to believe that that's a real thing that happened. But on the other hand, like I've said, you said some pretty wild shit. And so I don't know anymore. I don't know how to take a thing that Dan says and assess it for whether he believes it on the basis of how plausible it seems, right? Because there doesn't seem to be anything that's too batshit for Dan, except maybe the flat earth. But I'm pretty sure that that's actually just because of how old he is. I'm pretty sure that if you took Dan as, like, you know, a teenager and you time traveled him like 30 years into the future, he'd end up being a flat earther now. It's the same reason I don't think that, or it's the same reason I think that, like, Kent Hovind isn't a flat earther. It's not because they have some kind of evidentiary basis for their beliefs and that's too far fetched. It's because it wasn't popular when they were kids and they were learning about creationism.
Yep.
So, like, guys, tell me in the chat, do you think that Dan actually thinks that a stone giant who's impervious to damage, like Achilles, except that instead of its heel, it's its face, which, by the way, way shittier weak spot. Heels are way better as weak spots because no one thinks to go for the heel. People always think to go for the face. But anyway, do you, like, let me know in the chat, like, or in the comments if you're watching this after, do you actually think that Dan Biddle takes seriously the idea of a stone-skinned giant?
They called them the stone giants in this myth. And here's another one. This is from Nelson Lee, a Texan Ranger written in 1859. He says,
yes, the Texas Rangers, well known for their cordial relations with both the Mexicans and the natives. By the way, that was sarcasm. They're known mostly for being
like
genocidal against them.
Literally, guys like this regularly just lied.
Mm-hmm.
They're racist, and they just lied for the love of the game.
Yeah, you tell me it's that this was written by a Texas Ranger, and, like, you might as well tell me it was made by, like, the KKK, because to a large extent that's more or less what they were for centuries. Well, decades. I don't want to expand the history of, like, Texas too far.
Race of 10-foot tall white men who ruled and built many of the fortifications in early America.
My guy,
isn't it
that
funny
is just
how the Texas guy is like, oh yeah, they were a race of white men.
Mm-hmm.
Giants ruling over them. Okay.
This is just, like, mid-19th century storytelling because they didn't believe that the indigenous peoples could build cities. Why didn't they believe that? It was racism. It was just racism. They were just fucking racists. Literally, that's the entirety of it. They were like, hey, these savages couldn't build a city. Must have been white people, I guess. Tree Clan Tat for $5 says, do you think Dan Biddle takes seriously an idea? No. I mean, fair. That is fair.
Describing them as cunning, brave, and warlike, driving Indians from their homes. That was his account from the 1800s. Another one from the Bureau of Ethnology. In the woods, certain beings were supposed to live, which had the appearance of men.
People would do that? Just go on the newspaper and tell lies? Seriously.
Lightning Ignorant says, Dan Biddle doesn't take anything seriously. He's a fundamentally unserious person. He cares about victory more than reality. Yeah, that does seem to be the thing.
Feet or more in height and with long arms but small heads. They carried off women, but most Indians thought seldomly they seldomly only attacked men. However, one informant claimed that
Daniel OS also adds, Dan Biddle is just inventing Mormonism too.
I mean, that's actually the origin of Mormonism, is this same racist bullshit, right? The entire reason that Joseph Smith is living in a society where the idea of ancient old world people, ancient Israelites, coming over to the New World to set up the mound building societies and building all these cities that there were ruins of, is because people at the time didn't think that the indigenous people, the Native Americans, the First Nations people, could do it. And that's why he sets their ancestors as the bad guys in his book, and he sets up the good guys, the Nephites, as being, quote, white and delightsome, and then gave the Lamanites, the bad guys, a skin of darkness, because white Europeans were lighter skinned than the indigenous peoples of the areas that he was in, basically. And it is actually connected. Both the Mormon theology around the indigenous peoples of the Americas, as well as this giant bullshit, both grow out of the idea that non-white people couldn't have built civilizations.
Mm-hmm.
IT Guru for $5 says Texas State Historical Association classifies this as a probably spurious. Anthropologist Melbourne D. Thurman says blatantly erroneous, a total nut. Yeah, that sounds like what I would expect. And I know I'm getting a little heated about this, right? But the thing is, it's just racism. That's it. It's just Dan spreading racist lies. Why? I don't know. I don't know of anyone who's been like, well, I don't know. I don't see evidence of the Nephilim, so I don't think I can be Christian. I don't think that's ever happened. Maybe it has. Maybe I'm wrong. You know what? If you are a former Christian and your reason for abandoning your Christianity is because of lack of evidence for Nephilim, please let me know. Also, unrelated, but if you have ever been a Christian and you were converted by someone shouting at people on a street corner about repenting of their sins, I also want to know, because it is my hypothesis that has never actually worked. But then again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe someone out there has been shouted out by a street preacher and been like, oh yeah, you know what? I do need Jesus. Maybe.
Well,
Tree Clan Tad for $2 says, don't worry, Dan has arms long enough to box God. Wait, no, I thought that was someone else. Wasn't that Israel that had arms long enough to box God? No, this was a wrestling match. And then God cheats.
yeah.
Like, haha, I'm going to paralyze your thigh. Well, that's bullshit, man.
Give you a limp.
Megan Fox's Giant Boost, who's been a member for 25 months, says, gestures at US. Is this racism? And the answer is a lot of it, yes. I'm not going to say all of it.
It's 3 racisms in a trench coat.
Well, yeah. All right.
They sometimes killed and flayed men, and from this circumstance derived their name Lofa, which means to skin. They could run very fast. Some were stronger than men. Some were not so strong. So, yeah, maybe some different cultures.
Yeah, man. And Odysseus came across one-eyed giants. Now what?
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean that the Cyclops story is true? Are Cyclopses stupid enough to be fooled by someone saying that their name is no one?
Idiot.
Cultures can have these mythical or exaggerated, spooky campfire stories.
Light in the Ignorance says, it wasn't my only reason, but the historical evidence for giants was an early major source of doubt for me. Really interesting. I am a little surprised. I mean, I believe you. Sorry, Vish, you sound like you had a thing.
Yeah, him saying like, oh, exaggerated legends and campfire tales. I'm like, dude, literally that is the most self-aware wolves thing you've said all stream.
Right? Yeah. Like, oh man. People
that
exaggerate
is literally
things
what these
campfires?
are. These
Really?
are literally what those are. And he's like, no, but like they prove my specific theological conclusion.
Right.
Unless they don't, then they're just campfire stories.
Well, that is basically Dan Biddle's heuristic for whether or not a thing is true. Is like, does it confirm the things I already believe? Probably true then.
And this is literally the egotism and main character syndrome of fundamentalist evangelical Christianity. They are the main characters of reality. Everything is about them. History is about them. It is absolute just narcissism.
IT Guru for 42 says, what would the difference be between encountering one-eyed people and encountering people who wore eye patches to swap for night vision when going below decks? The difference would be that one-eyed people would have one eye, and that people with eye patches have 2 eyes. If they're doing it for that reason. So they're biclopses. Remember that time that Leela from
yes,
became a biclops? I think she looked better as a cyclops. It was weird seeing her with 2 eyes. I didn't like it. All right, we're going to start wrapping up here because it is about time. We've been going for a little bit over 2 hours if you include the stream start soon bit. So, or the please stand by bit, because I didn't actually have a stream start soon bit this time because I suck. Vishanti, you got anything that you want people to know about before we get out of here?
If you're gonna get something off my wish list, reach out to me first, because I was getting very rude secondhand messages from the current tenants of where I used to live because Amazon doesn't know how to update addresses, apparently.
It sucks that they were shitty about it. Like, I've received other people's mail and just been like, hey, I got your mail.
Oh, okay.
Just say
Yeah,
that.
they were really upset that it happened twice.
One time, I got the neighbor's Amazon package. You know what I did? I just walked over to their porch and put it down.
Yeah, that's
Like,
happened to me before.
it doesn't need to be a whole thing. It's fine. It doesn't matter that much. It's not a big deal. I've also received plenty of mail for the people who used to live at this address before, anyone who lives here now did. And like,
Yeah.
whatever. Look, if you get someone else's mail, don't be shitty about it. Just don't.
Yeah,
All right.
all you have to do, like, you can write, return to sender or something similar. You can also just give it back to the post office.
Yep.
Like, it's not that deep.
Let's see. I will say there was one time I was expecting a package, and then I got a package, and I opened it, and I realized it was the wrong package. And I looked at the name on it, and it was not my name or Bent's name, and I was like, "Oh, I just opened someone else's package."
Oops.
Yeah.
Whoops.
But in my defense, I was expecting a package, and it arrived at my house, and it wasn't addressed to anyone who was there. So yeah, that was weird. Anyway,
it's
all right.
doubly frustrating because I paid like the extra fee to have the post office forward my mail for a year and not just however many like months.
Well, part of
So,
the problem is, at least if
yeah.
it's like packages from Amazon, they don't always go through the post office.
Yeah, and when I update my address book, that usually takes effect like immediately. So, not sure what's going on there, but anyway.
Templar Warden for 10 Kiwi dollars says it's less about you need giants to believe in Christianity and more you need giants to believe Dan Biddle when he talks about giants and everything else, including his brand of Christianity. That's fair. Let's see. Martin Kasperi Smith says, "What are your thoughts on the upcoming film, The End of Oak Street, when it comes to paleo accuracy wise?" So I have not seen all of the monsters that are purporting to be dinosaurs, because that's usually what I consider Hollywood dinosaur depictions. But they seem to be a little bit of a mixed bag. But I also haven't really looked into it enough to form a firm opinion. So like, I don't know. I would have to actually really dig into it more. It seems like they were better than the that 66 movie with the Kylo Ren guy where he's like an alien or something that crashes on Earth with his prisoner, and it's 66 million years ago, and there's a bunch of dinosaurs and whatnot. In that, the reconstructions were atrocious. Just nauseating, really. The one on End of Oak Street seemed better than that from what I've seen. But again, I haven't seen enough of them to actually have like a really, really strong opinion.
What was I watching recently that had a dinosaur in it? And they had the broken wrist, and I was sitting here with my friend Brody, and I just raged for a minute. Because, like, once you see broken wrists, you can't unsee it.
It's true.
Can't remember what it was.
Remember, theropods were clappers, not slappers. They clapped their hands together. They didn't slap their thighs.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So what's coming up here on the channel? Well, the next thing, which is not actually on the channel, but after this, over on Discord, we're going to be doing the Star Trek watch party. We're still in Enterprise Season 3. That's the season with the Xindi. We have not got to the giraffe skull yet. That is still coming. That's still
Or
coming.
the Andorian Mining Consortium.
Let's see. So we're going to watch 2 episodes of Star Trek Enterprise over on the Discord in just the general voice chat. We then on Tuesday, I am going to be doing Tisdall Tuesday with Chesh. That is the plan. I am pretty sure she is down for it. I do have to double check, but I mean, I think she'll be okay. Then on Thursday, I don't actually know what I'm premiering, but there's gonna be a premiere at noon. So like I haven't scheduled because I've been lazy. So yeah, noon o'clock. There's gonna be a thing that's Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Then on Friday, we're gonna be doing the next episode of Star Trek Endurance, my actual play show. That will be at 5 p.m. Pacific. Let's see. And that is going to be what is the episode called? It Takes a Village is the name of that episode. Then on Saturday, the plan is to be back here. Maybe with Kip, maybe not with Kip. I don't know. Roshina for 199 says the 9/11 season due to low ratings of Enterprise. Yeah, that's not inaccurate.
I mean, look, a lot of people did 9/11 themed stuff on TV after 9/11 happened, so
Yeah.
I can't blame them.
Yeah.
It's no excuse for poor writing, though.
I didn't think the entire Xindi arc was poorly written. I liked some of
It
it.
wasn't.
Yeah.
I also that season was not my favorite because that's the episode with the emotionally expressive Vulcans, and one of them mentally assaults T'Pol, and I didn't like that at all.
Yeah. It seems like Star Trek has a thing for having rape analogies with telepaths, especially female telepaths. And maybe you don't have to do that so many times. Like, I can see doing it once or twice across the franchise, but I don't know. Maybe it doesn't have to happen over and over and over and
I
over.
will say that in that same episode, though, there was a pretty funny exchange between Trip and one of the other Vulcans, where he's like, "I heard that humans sleep, 12 hours a day,"
Yeah.
and Trip's like 6 to 8.
Yep. Yep, and he
Just so
also had
funny.
to disabuse him of his notion about how often and with what readiness humans mate.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, all right. I'm going to get out of here. I hope everyone has a safe rest of your weekend. Have fun out there. If you do have access to the Discord, please feel free to hang out with us as we watch 2 episodes of Star Trek Enterprise. Then after that, I have plans to go fuck around in Tailspire with Chesh so we can figure out how to make it work for my next campaign, because I am well past the halfway point with the Star Trek adventure stuff. And the next thing is going to be a Warhammer campaign. So if you like Warhammer, stay tuned for that. All right, everybody. The last thing I have to say to all of you is that ICE must be abolished.
Hey, before you leave, I just want to take a second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above. Sealoof, Ben Tovand, Tapioca Weasel, The Plastic Mouse, Mikau Dominiak, Bear Kolesqua, Edwin M., Kenneth Swenson, John Ackerman, Sphincter of Doom, Regios, Our Favorite Universe, Ian Chen, Eleron Teller, Phil Rivara, David Hercules, Joshua Geese, Dan Sheedy, Pegajace, Arrow Dodger, Gordon Loves Science, Amber Athelian, Prixie Purple, Agricola Sequa, Me, Myself, and I, and Ian Kiambi. It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 15% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.